Welcome back to our channel. In our last video, we discussed the problem of customer concentration, when too large a percentage of your business's revenue is driven by just one or two customers, and how that negatively impacts a business's value and its sellability. In this video, I describe a phenomenon almost nobody talks about, but every buyer cares about. It's the mirror image of customer concentration, owner concentration. Now, if you've never heard that term before, it's one that every business owner needs to be aware of, because if you ignore it, it can slash your business's value, drag out your sale process, and even make your business unsellable. So in the next few minutes, I'll define what owner concentration is, why it matters, and what you can do about it if your business suffers from it. So what is owner concentration? If you watched our last video, you heard me explain customer concentration and its downside. Buyers don't like it, lenders don't like it. In fact, nobody likes it, except maybe the owner, and that's only because it has a high margin as a rule. Owner concentration is the same problem, but in reverse. It's when the owner is responsible for the lion's share of a business's revenue. What this means is that the clients know you, the work flows through you, the relationships belong to you, and if you leave, there's a good chance that some of that revenue is going to leave. Buyers look at this and they think, boy, this is a great business, as long as the owner never leaves. That is owner concentration. Now, it terrifies buyers. Small business owners are typically the face of their business. They built it, they nurture it, and they've often turned customers into friends early on, even before much profit was flowing to the bottom line. But that relationship-driven model becomes a huge liability when it's time to sell. If too much revenue depends on the owner, buyers will have several concerns. Clients will follow the owner out the door. Revenue will drop. Earnings will drop. And as night follows day, business value will drop. That is the concern of the buyer. I'm going to buy something and it'll be worth a lot less a week later. What this means is that the valuation on paper may be meaningless when it comes to the marketplace, when you bring it to market. So here's an example. We have a client right now who runs a service business. She has a couple of employees, a couple of independent contractors. The business is about 20 years old and she started it. She's averaging about $2 million a year in revenue. The business is very high margin and consistently profitable. On paper, we valued it out at about $1.5 million. Sounds great, right? Except we strongly suspected that the owner is personally responsible for the lion's share of the business's revenue. We've asked for an estimate a number of times of what percentage that is, but we've still not gotten an answer, or we just have gotten an answer. The longer the seller delayed answering that question, the more concerned we became. And as you can imagine, the delay really was an answer. We eventually learned that the owner was responsible for between 75 and 80% of the business's revenue on any given year. She was making a lot of money, but this is the essence of owner concentration. With that kind of lopsided revenue distribution, it was time for a tough but very important conversation. Your business looks great on paper, we said, but the way it's actually operating may make it significantly difficult, if not impossible, to sell it at anywhere near that original valuation number. Now, how does owner concentration impact value? Well, just like customer concentration, owner concentration affects sellability. Few buyers will be willing to take the risk of a potential revenue collapse. It impacts price. Any buyers that actually emerge will apply a heavy discount to compensate for this high level of perceived risk. It impacts financing. Lenders don't want to finance a business with a high risk of the revenue collapsing when the owner walks out the door. And it impacts deal structure. Owner concentration means much less cash at closing and much longer transition periods and more earnouts. I'll give you an example. In this particular case, I put on my buyer's hat. If I was a buyer, how would I approach this? Well, I'd start by assuming a certain percentage of the business's revenue would disappear. My next step would be to try and estimate how much. 30%? 50%? Remember, the seller was responsible for something between 70 and 80%. Some percentage is going to disappear. And then I would try and estimate the business's value based on that reduced revenue stream. In this case, just doing a quick thumbnail analysis, that business that we estimated it was worth at $1.5 million just based on its revenue stream was reduced in value to about $730,000, estimating the loss of a certain percentage of value, a 50% haircut. So what can be done? When owner concentration is high, there are typically three paths to recover. First, discount the price. Acknowledge the risk and accept a lower valuation. It's not attractive and it's not fun, I acknowledge that. But sometimes it's the only clean and clear way if the seller wants out in the near term. Number two, extend the transition. The seller stays in the business for a year or two, sometimes longer, while transferring the relationships and the goodwill to the buyer. This is essentially a business being sold slowly. And number three, an earnout. Now, we talk about earnouts often in our blog, but the buyer pays an initial amount at closing, but the rest of the purchase price depends on the business maintaining its revenue stream after the buyer buys. This can work, but most sellers hate it for a couple of reasons. First, they have to stay involved, and this is sometimes for an extended period, multiple years. They also have to end up sharing the risk with the buyer. Now, this is only right. There is a great deal of risk of some of this revenue disappearing, and you can't expect to get full price and ask the buyer to shoulder all of the risk. And the third is they don't get the full price at closing. The price is paid out over the period outlined in the earnout. But sometimes this is the only way to bridge the gap. So what's the bottom line here? Well, owner concentration isn't as common as customer concentration, but when it exists, it can be just as destructive. And bringing a business to market with a price expectation that ignores such a major, obvious negative factor is a recipe for wasted time, wasted effort, wasted money, reputational damage for the broker, and a very frustrated seller. If you're planning to sell in the next few years and you know you're the Rainmaker, now is the time to start shifting relationships and diversifying who drives the revenue inside your business. Your future buyer and your business's future value depend on it. In our next video, I'll discuss the importance of cleaning up your balance sheet and how to do it to eliminate any number of really bad issues that raise red flags with almost every buyer. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that one or any of our next weekly videos. I've added links to multiple resources to valuing and selling business, including the How Much Is My Business Worth playlist in the description below. But if you have a question, leave a comment because I'll answer them all. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.